How we doing, folks? My name is Brent Battis, the executive chef with Three Guys Basement Barbecue in Hanover, New Hampshire. We're trying out a new dish today. It's called shrimp and grits. We are making the base for that right now. We just wanted to kind of walk you guys through on how we're going to do it. We're starting off with some of our house-made bacon here, and we're just going to start this off in a cold pan over medium-low heat and just cook it off till it's about golden brown, nice and crispy, and then we'll strain off the fat. And then we're going to come in and add all of these lovely vegetables. We've got onions, peppers, celery, our house-made hot sauce, a little bit of flour, some milk from Thomas Dairy, and then lastly some fresh lemon. So we'll be back in a minute and we'll let you see. So we're back. We got the bacon all cooked off. You look at that. It's nice and golden brown, nice and crispy. And then in the pan, we've got all that leftover goodness, all that fat, and that's what we're going to use to saute off our vegetables. We'll start with the onions in there. We want to get just a little bit of color on these, not much at all. Mostly just going to sweat them out. Hit that little pinch of salt. And we're just going to let those cook down for a minute. And then we'll add our celery and our peppers and cook those a little bit more. Alright, so we'll let those onions sweat out a little bit. They got a nice little translucent color to them. Bottom of the pan, all that nice good fondness coming right off there. We're just going to add in our celery. And then our peppers. And we're going to sweat this out for probably another 2 or 3 minutes. There we go. Alright, so our Trinity is nicely sweated out. You can see how it's nice and tender, everything, but it's still got a little bit of crunch to it. We don't want to cook it any more than that, because if we do, then it's going to be soft and mushy and you're not going to get any texture out of it. So that's where we want that. We still have the bacon fat drippings in there. We're going to add about a cup of flour to the mix. And we're just going to stir that in, reduce our heat down a little bit. You don't want it to burn, and that fat will bind with the roux, and that's going to be what's going to thicken this up and give it that nice gravy kind of consistency to it. And we're just going to stir this quite often for the next probably 3 to 5 minutes and let that flour and all that starchy flavor cook out of the roux. And then we'll add in our milk and bring it up to a simmer from there. Alright, so that roux, we've cooked that out for about 2 or 3 minutes. You can see it's kind of nice and gelatinous in there. It's all sticking together. So we kept the heat nice and low so there's no browning or anything like that. And we're just going to slowly mix in this cream. And all of that roux will actually tighten that cream up and thicken this up into a nice gravy for the shrimp that we'll use when we heat that up to order. If we're lucky, we won't have any lumps, or bunnies as they call them. We're just keeping the heat nice and low, as you can see. And we're just going to keep stirring that, and all that liquid will break up that roux, and it should tighten this up for us. You know, this is the first time making this recipe, so there's always some adjustments that have to be made. If we had to have a little more liquid or a little more roux, we can always do that if we need to. We're just going to let this simmer for about probably 15-20 minutes, and then we're going to finish it up with a little bit of our house hot sauce and a little fresh lemon. Then we'll taste and season with a little salt and pepper. Alright, so as we thought, you know, whenever you're testing out a new recipe, this is just a little bit thicker than we want it. And when the thing with the trick with roux is it's always going to thicken more as it cools down. So it's just a little too tight. We don't want it to be too thick, especially with this hot weather we've been having. So we're just going to stir in another couple cups of milk and then cook that down probably for another 10-15 minutes or so. Alright, so this has been cooking nice and slow. I mean, you can still see that flame. See how small that is? We don't want it to be very high at all. That's been going for about 15-20 minutes. It's got a beautiful consistency. It's not too thick, not too thin. And once again, once this cools, it's still going to tighten up a little bit more, but we'll fix that when we heat it up for service. So next we have our house-made spicy habanero sauce. We're just going to add 1 tablespoon of that in there, just to give it a little depth of flavor, a little bit of heat. We'll stir that in gently, and then we're going to finish this sauce with a little bit of fresh zested lemon That's going to give it just that little bit of acidity, a little bit of fresh flavor at the end. Will complement the shrimp really well. Bang that off, and then we'll get in and we'll just finish that. A little bit of the juice, catching them through our hands, so we're careful not to get any of those seeds in there. That'll be a nice little surprise to wake up to. And once again, that's just going to give it that little bit of freshness, a little pop of flavor. And that's it. We're going to season this with some salt and pepper. We're going to cool this down. And then this is going to be our base for the shrimp and grits. Once this is cool, we'll be back and we'll show you guys how we're going to put it all together. Alright, so now we're going to finish up the dish, the order. We have our base that we made yesterday right over here. So this is, we just cooled that down. We'll heat that back up to order. And then we've got some beautiful, some nice beautiful rock shrimp. In the pan we've just got a little bit of butter. Just going to hit that with a little bit of minced shallot, a very small pinch of garlic. And we'll sweat that out for a second with a pinch of salt. We just want to cook that gently. We don't want to burn it. Garlic burns very quickly. Just want to soften that up, mellow those flavors out a little bit. Just going to add a nice bit of freshness to the dish right from the bat. So then we're just going to take our shrimp. These rock shrimp cook very quickly. Doing about 15 or so shrimp to an order. And we're just going to get a little color on those. A little pinch of salt and pepper right there. And then we're just cooking those down a little bit of butter. About a medium-high heat. We'll cook these about halfway. And then we'll add in our the shrimp base that we made earlier. This just allows us to have a nice consistent product all the time. No matter what's going on, no matter how busy we are, the product's always going to be the same all the way through. We just add a couple scoops of that shrimp base, and that's going to warm up a little bit, and that'll turn into our gravy. In our other saute pan here, we have our grits. This is just made with some hominy white grits, a little bit of milk, some mascarpone, some fresh parsley, and a little bit of sugar. So let's take our plate here, screwing our grits down right in the middle. And this is just an appetizer. Of course, if somebody comes in and they want a dinner portion, we could definitely do that for them with a double order. I just want to check this for seasoning real quick. That's pretty good. So then we'll shut that pan off, and like I said, these shrimp cook really, really fast. Then we're just going to spoon the shrimp with the gravy right around the sides. That's not a ton of gravy, you know, and we don't want it to be like soup. You have all this extra sauce on the plate when you're done. We want just enough on there to coat the shrimp, kind of marry with the gravy a little bit, and then we're just going to garnish with some of the bacon that we used to start the whole sauce process. That's going to give it a little bit of texture, a little bit of crunch, and then a little bit more salt flavor as well. And then finally just a little bit of gremolata, which is just our play on gremolata, which is just parsley and shallots. And that's it. Pick up, please.